Okay, so today we're going to talk about help defense. Now, as basketball coaches, whether you're coaching the youth level or older age groups as well, it's important to always teach defense. And, a goal of coaches is always to have an elite help defense. So today we're going to talk about some different ways that we can teach help defenses to our basketball teams. Now, the most popular drill in terms of teaching help defense is the shell drill. And we're going to talk about some pros and some actual cons to the shell drill and why coaches should look at alternative methods to teaching help defense for your youth basketball teams and any basketball teams in general. So let's break it down. So what is the shell drill? What are we talking about with the shell? So the shell drill in basketball is an instructional tool used primarily to teach defensive concepts, teamwork, and communication. So here's what we'll typically do in a shell. When you're looking at a shell, you'll typically have 5 players on the floor on offense, 5 players on the floor on defense, and you'll pass the ball around to different players on the offensive end and have the defense shift to cover where they would be in a typical help format. There are some pros to running the shell, and we'll talk about that as well. What are some of those pros? Number one, realistic game situations, right? The shell drill does mimic where a defender would be on the floor if they were in a help situation. There's also a focus on communication with the shell drill. A lot of times as coaches, when we teach the shell, we have our players, especially at the youth age groups, communicate what position they're in on the floor. Do they have ball? Are they guarding the ball? Are they in help? Are they in one pass away? Are they in deny? Depends what type of defense you are teaching, but that's also a pretty big focus of the shell drill is communication. The shell drill also teaches help defensive concepts, which we know, and it focuses a lot on positioning. So again, the shell drill, there isn't anything incredibly wrong with it. These are some good points, but there are a few things that the shell drill does limit your team when teaching defense. Number one is the lack of game speed. So when you're teaching the shell, oftentimes you have your offense standing in one particular spot and you're passing the ball around back and forth. But that can actually be a negative for your defense because you're teaching your defense how to play robotically rather than reacting to game situations. On offense, we never want our teams to play robotically. We want to teach them how to play, not plays themselves. But when you're teaching that on the defensive end through a shell, it's actually providing the reverse effect. You are teaching robotic defense. The shell also has limited physical contact. So because you're consistently just focusing on positioning, your team actually isn't getting better at defense. Your players aren't improving as defenders because all they're really worried about is what position on the floor I take. The shell drill can also be relatively repetitive. Again, there's not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of reaction. And in a basketball game that's becoming more and more of a read and react game, the shell drill doesn't really focus on a lot of that. There's also the over-reliance on technique. While it teaches technique, it might not fully develop aspects of defense that come from playing, right? Again, we're talking about that robotic structure. So overall, the shell, it does have some positives. It doesn't have any terrible negatives, but I do think that it's overused in terms of teaching defense on the basketball floor. So now we're going to look at my personal favorite drill when teaching help defense to basketball teams. Now let's look at my personal favorite drill to teach help defense. Now, when I teach help defense, I want to go over the same basic concepts of our help defense that we incorporate with the shell, meaning we really want to focus on positioning, we really want to focus on helping, we really want to focus on communication, right? But one thing that we want to focus on that the shell doesn't have is read and react. We want to teach our athletes how to help by being able to read and react on the defensive end, just like you'd want to do on the offensive end. You don't want to teach your athletes plays on the offensive end because then they get super robotic. Yes, you can incorporate plays into your offense, but you can't do that without teaching them how to play. So we want to do that exact same thing on the defensive end. We want to show them how to play, how to help. Now to start, we're going to do this in a 2-on-2 setting. So what we're going to do is we're going to start here with the basketball in the hands of number 1. Now to start our 2-on-2, what we're going to do is have number 1 on defense, which here we have our blue players on the defensive end, Number one is going to move right next to, we'll actually have it on this side. So we'll have number one move up right next to number one on the white team, and they're going to touch the floor with their hands. So we're going to give the offense, which is the white player, number one on the white team, we're going to give them the advantage. So we're going to allow number one on the white team to get a paint touch. Now, what this is going to force number two right here to do is help. They're going to have to step in and provide a help in order for number one not to just get a wide open layup. So they're going to end up stepping in here to help, or if even better, maybe they can pick up number one before they even get that paint touch. So maybe the first 1 to 2 times that you teach this to your team, number two might not actually help. But then number one will get a wide open layup. They're just going to get a lane to the basket. So the second time this happens, now number two on the blue team, they're going to be more eager to help. So they're going to most likely fill in here and provide a help. And then we'll probably have a switch. Number one will switch on to number two. And then that way, your team is learning to communicate. Your team is learning to read and react, right? We'll continue to play this. Now, what we'll typically do here is to encourage defense is either you get a point by getting a stop on the defensive end, or you turn to the offensive end only if you get a stop on the defensive end. Otherwise, the offense can just keep having the ball back to score over and over again. So let's take a look at this one more time. What we want to preach here, and then we'll probably even see our number two player here move back a bit because they know what's coming, right? Number one is going to have the ball. Number one on the blue team, they're going to start with a paint touch. And number two knows that they're going to have to step in for a help probably before they even get in the key, right? You might have number one not step on to help to number two right away, but during the second or third possession, you will teach them what to do. And in an ideal world, we have your players then switch. They read the situation, they reacted, they communicated through it, and now we're set up in a perfect defense on a 2-on-2. So rather than teaching a shell where you're just doing the same thing over and over again, we're putting it to the test now. And we're starting small in a 2-on-2, and then we can actually incorporate more players and try it in a 3-on-3. All right, folks, that is all we have for today's particular topic. If you made it this far into today's lesson, it is greatly appreciated. Now, if you guys could also do me a huge favor and like this video and subscribe to our channel, it would also be greatly appreciated. We are the Online Basketball Academy. My name is Coach Danny, and I continuously upload different basketball plays, basketball systems, basketball tactics, and basketball drills that youth basketball players or training basketball players can use, or basketball coaches can use with their players and their teams. Like I said, folks, if you could take the time to like this video and subscribe to our channel so I can continue to make this type of content for you all, that would be greatly appreciated. Till next time, peace out.